In 1964, one SIR and two SIR were deployed to the jungles of Johor and Sabah. Their mission was to fight against Indonesian troops who infiltrated Malaysia in a campaign to sabotage its formation. This was known as Konfrontasi.
I was tasked by my commanding officer to pursue the enemy. When we went in through the jungles to hunt for the casualties, we not only have to fight the enemy, we have to fight the terrain. The visibility is within almost 1 yard or 1 meter the most. You cannot move straight, you got to dodge here, and then you have to fight the ferns. You cannot walk through, you have to lie flat all the time.
After almost a month in the tough jungle terrains of Johor, about 40 Indonesian infiltrators were killed.
In 1963, Indonesia had many internal problems, both economic and political. In September of that year, Malaysia became a reality.
Hands off, Malaysia! Hands off!
Konfrontasi was waged by then President Sukarno, who saw the British proposal for a unified Malaysian state as a threat to his vision of a larger union of Indonesia, Malaya, Singapore, Brunei, Sabah and Sarawak. He was also afraid that British control in the region would increase and threaten Indonesia's national security. Sukarno sent soldiers in the guise of civilians to carry out more than 40 attacks in Singapore. The targets included schools, cinemas, and residences. The worst attack happened on the 10th of March 1965 at the MacDonald House.
The McDonald House bombing incident was very striking because it hit a commercial building. At that time, it was a very important commercial building in Orchard Road. Three lives were lost and 33 people were injured.
Within 4 days of the MacDonald House bombing, the two perpetrators were arrested. They were Indonesian Marines Usman Muhammad Ali and Harun Said.
They were tried and they were treated as common criminals because, first of all, they were not in uniform. Had they been in uniform, they would at least have been given the protection, the POW Geneva Convention. Secondly, the targets they chose were soft targets. MacDonald House was a soft target. So they were common criminals and they killed civilians. Because they were common criminals, they were tried as common criminals and they were sentenced to death. And the Indonesians were very unhappy about this incident. Suharto appealed to Mr. Lee Kuan Yew to spare these two guys. But we were very firm and said, no, they'll still be hung. They were sentenced to death.
The death sentence was passed in 1968, 2 years after Konfrontasi ended with the transfer of power to Indonesia's second President Suharto. The hanging sparked off unhappiness in Indonesia. Protesters ransacked the Singapore embassy in Jakarta and burnt the Singapore flag. Former Minister for Foreign Affairs, K. Shanmugam, explained Singapore's decision regarding the death sentence in 2014. Not pardoning Usman and Harun was a defining moment for Singapore. Had we agreed to release them, it would have set the precedent for our relationships with all bigger countries. That precedent would be that we will, or we should, do what a bigger country asks and pressures us to do even when we have been grievously hurt. That is a different concept of sovereignty, and that is not good for us and which we cannot accept. In 1973, then Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew made his first official visit to Indonesia. He scattered flowers over the graves of Usman and Harun as a gesture of reconciliation between our two countries. Then, Singapore began to build relations with Indonesia under the leadership of Suharto.